Today we're solving another puzzle live in the 2200 to 2400 range here on chess.com. This is a position straight out of the opening, and as we can see, both sides have four minor pieces, queen and two rooks, and they're missing one pawn for black and two pawns for white, so we're down a tiny amount in material. Our opponent has just played knight to e5, establishing a knight in the center, but that knight is also susceptible to capture by our knight on f3, and we also have an idea of playing a discovered attack here of our bishop along this long diagonal. So we have some motifs here to play with. There's also a possible idea of playing queen to d5, adding an attacker to e5, and targeting this pawn here on f7. Knight takes f3 by our opponent is with a check, so we have to consider that in case he plays that as a Zwischenzug move. So let's start by analyzing the piece activity. We have three pieces developed for our opponent and three pieces developed for us. So both sides are exchanging blows in the opening, getting their pieces and their forces out there. King safety wise, it's looking pretty good for both players. Our opponent is just one knight development move away from castling, and we are ready to castle as well. Our king technically can be checked by knight takes f3, so I would give us a 6 out of 10 in king safety. Our opponent, a 8 out of 10 in king safety. But it's unlikely to play a factor, as I don't think that we'll be going for a checkmate in this puzzle. There's no way that the opponent's king can be checked without massive loss of material, so let's keep that in mind. With that, all of that said, let's start looking at candidate moves. So one candidate move is knight takes e5. We would be winning a piece unless our opponent recaptures, so he will probably play queen takes e5. After this, we have a bishop here that's hanging, but if we play c takes b4, he can take our bishop on b2 and equalize material and also attack this rook on a1. So we would have to maybe develop a knight here. And after that, a lot of pieces have just been exchanged. He can then trade off the queens, and he would be doing very well in the endgame because he's up a pawn. So we don't want that exact sequence to happen. So let's revert back to this position here. Knight takes e5, queen takes e5. Is there anything else that we can do in this position to gain an advantage? There's also the idea of playing queen to d5, threatening a checkmate on f7. So he can parry that by taking on d5, and we would take back with our bishop, and his bishop is still hanging on b4, but he can just move it out of the way in that case, let's say d6. And in that case, he has only traded off a pair of queens and a pair of knights, and still is looking pretty good heading into the endgame, so we don't want to just give him that advantage. Let's revert back to knight takes e5, queen takes e5 again, and see if there's any other moves that we can make that are good in this position. We can maybe play a move like queen to b3 and hit the bishop and defend our bishop, but again, he can just move his bishop back to a square like e7. He can even take our pawn here on e4, which is hanging, and then retreat his bishop, so that would allow him to win a little bit more material. So we're starting to gain an appreciation here for why this puzzle is rated so highly. It has interesting ideas that we should probably exploit, but it also has these fallbacks that our opponent has, these tactical motifs that play in his favor as well, adding to the challenge of solving this. So let's abandon knight takes e5 for a moment and take a look at another candidate move, c takes b4. In this case, he can play knight takes f3 check, discovering an attack down this diagonal here. And let's say we recapture with a queen on f3, then he can take our bishop on b2 and threaten, again, this rook on a1. And in that case, we don't even have our queen back here to defend. So maybe queen takes f3 wouldn't be the best idea. Let's try g takes f3 instead. So our pawn structure is a little bit damaged on the king side, and he's taken on b2. We've traded off two minor pieces. And in order to defend our rook, we would have to play knight to d2. Knight to c3 would hang our knight, so we wouldn't want to play that. And in that position, we will have just traded off a pair of pieces. So nothing much has been accomplished on that front once again. If we start with queen to d5 potentially, here he can play knight takes f3 check and get rid of that knight, and we would play pawn takes f3. Then he can play queen takes f3 and now threaten our rook with a check on f1 so that he doesn't even have to be worried temporarily about this bishop. But that might be a mistake because we can now take on f3, or actually we can't because his queen is still defending that square if he takes on f3. So queen to d5 also doesn't look like it works right off the bat. Let's see if there's any other moves that we can consider from the starting position, or maybe one or two moves deep into one of these other variations that we've been calculating here as we continue to try to unravel the mystery of this puzzle and make it into something that's concrete. So there's an idea at some point of potentially playing a move like queen to b3 with the idea of lining up this battery. Instead of having the queen lead the battery on d5, which would be a little bit stronger for the battery, we play queen to b3 so that we can defend our bishop and hit his bishop on b4. So let's say we take on e5, he takes on e5, and then we play this queen b3 move. In that case, let's see what he would have at his disposal. He would have to cover the bishop for sure. But he can maybe just retreat his bishop to e7, allow us to take on f7, and then just play king to g8. But in that case, we also have bishop takes king to f8. Sorry, we can also here play bishop takes g8. He would play rook takes g8, and things are looking okay for him. He's lost his pawn on f7, but that's only allowing him to allowing us to equalize the material. So that move doesn't look like it gains anything right off the bat. Let's revert back to this position again and see if there's anything else we can do with queen to b3. So it would be his turn to move. He could even throw in a check here by taking on e4 first. And then after that move, then moving his bishop back so that he really doesn't care about losing this pawn on f7. So that's the queen takes b3 idea. So with that, all of that in mind, I mean, there's also just castles, but I think that's too passive. We have to take advantage of the fact that he has just moved his knight into a square where it can be captured, and focus on winning material here. In terms of which piece I think is most likely to be winnable, I think it's either this bishop or this knight. I think we're going to come out of the puzzle having won a full piece, and it's got to be one of these two pieces. So let's continue calculating c takes b4 and knight takes e5 and just see what's the difference between these two moves. C takes b4 allows him to play this Zwischenzug move, knight takes f3 check, which is very forcing. We have to recapture. And right after that, he can take our bishop on b2. So that move has more limited options for us. It's a little bit easier to calculate for that reason, but it liquidates the position very quickly as a result. Do we have a move like, let's say we play c takes b4, knight takes f3, g takes f3, queen takes b2. Can we throw in queen d5 now as a move, threatening on f7 and temporarily not caring about our rook on a1? If we do that, we're threatening queen takes f7 check, king to d8, queen to f8 mate, because this bishop is no longer defending the b4 to f8 diagonal. In that case, he could maybe play a move like knight to h6 and guard on f7, and that would be sufficient defenses. And now we have to worry about our hanging rook on a1, and we wouldn't be able to save that rook anymore, because if we just castle and get our king out of the check, he can just take on a1 and win our rook on pre. So that variation has its limitations. Going back to knight takes e5, queen takes e5, and seeing if there's any checks that can help us here. We can always sack the bishop on f7, and he plays king takes f7, and then we play queen b3 check. And in this case, his king, let's say, moves back to f8. Then we play c takes b4, but here again he has queen takes e4 check, and we have to block with our queen. Or we don't have to block with our queen, but if we wanted to maintain the right to castle, we would. But both sides again have traded off a pair of pawns, just like the other variation that we looked at with bishop takes f7 check after the queen b3 move. So that doesn't seem like it does us any favors either. Can we play a move like f4? So after knight takes e5, queen takes e5, f4, to try to deflect his queen off of the diagonal here, where it's threatening our bishop on b2 via x-ray. Is that an option? If we play that way, f4, he can take on e4 with a check, and then that gets him out of trouble with a tempo. So then let's say we play queen e2, he can now just take here with a check, and then after bishop takes, his bishop is free to run away. So f4 doesn't work for that reason. Knight takes e5, queen takes e5. Is there anything we can do to add a defender to b2 with a tempo so that we can take on b4 in the move immediately following? Let's see, queen c2, d2, e2. I'm just mechanically considering all the possible moves here at this point. We could castle, we could play knight d2, we could play bishop a3, but that would just lead to an exchange. So it's really hard for me to make knight takes e5 work. We're going to have to dig in a little bit more and activate our brain and really come up with something that's ingenious to solve this puzzle. Queen to b3, queen d5, knight takes. It's just this pawn that's hanging on e4 that's giving us a lot of trouble here, as well as the pin along this diagonal. Okay, so let's say we play a move like queen to e2. He can still play knight takes f3 with a check. We play g takes f3, and then his bishop just runs away. So that is very thematic of this position. And if we castle, knight takes f3 check is still going to be played. It still looks like knight takes e5 is the most likely first move in this position, just because it gives us a lot of flexibility on the third ply of the move. But I'm not confident enough to make that move right away. And the other issue is c takes b4. It's not with a check or anything like that, so we don't gain that tempo from it. Another thing I'm noticing is that we do have an attack on the b2 square. Once this material has cleared out of the a1 to ha diagonal, such that if we can get those pieces all out of the way, c takes b4 now comes with this clearance and an attack. But we haven't found a move yet that can clear this attack and not allow the bishop to be captured immediately afterward. Either his bishop has run away in many variations, or his queen takes on b2. But maybe there's a way that we can make that work. So Let me see if I can find it. Knight takes e5, queen takes e5, queen d5, queen d5 right away, knight takes f3, g takes f3. We are now 15 minutes into the solve. Let's divert our attention into something else for a moment and see if we can come back to the puzzle and think about it. So tomorrow I was planning on posting a video that shows one of the games that I played today on my account. And it's a pretty highly rated rapid game. It's between two 1800 rated players, myself and my opponent. And my opponent played in a way that was kind of unsavory to me. It felt like he wasn't respecting the game of chess and trying to get out of it what you should rationally get out of spending your time in doing really any activity, right? Trying to get multiple ROIs. So I broke down the game and looked at psychologically what was going on for the opponent and why the way that he plays is not likely to result in any serious amount of improvement. And tomorrow I'm going to be going over that game with my coach at around noon my time. So after that, I'll be able to upload a video to my channel, both with my thoughts and his thoughts to the game. And I think that'll make for a cool video. It'll be my first video outside of solving a puzzle, but still geared in this chess improvement theme that we have going on. So you can look forward to that. Other than that, today I went to a Sri Lankan restaurant. I don't think I've ever been to a Sri Lankan restaurant before. It has a lot of dishes that are heavily influenced by India. There was a section of South Indian dishes, and they served samosas, both chicken samosas and vegetable samosas. So I found that to be very nice because that is a dish that I enjoy quite a bit. And I ordered this, I think it was called a tutta, T-U-T-T-A dish that came in a very spicy flavor, which I like. And it had a lot of onions on it. And I kind of have this funny like childhood trauma story about eating onions where I was in preschool back in China where I grew up. And every Tuesday we had to eat a bowl of onions for whatever reason, like nothing else, just straight up cooked onions. And it made me so sick of onions that I was unable to finish my bowl. And the teacher, instead of empathizing with me, would just force feed me the onions. And she would do so by plugging up my nose so that I couldn't breathe. And then I would have to open my mouth to breathe. And then she would shove a spoonful of onions into my mouth. So that went on like week after week for my entire time there in preschool. And I was so traumatized by that incident that for my entire life, I have not been able to enjoy the taste of onions. I can eat onions if they are deeply fried, like fried onions. I can sometimes eat those, unless the inner onion is like still soft. I think maybe that's all fried onions. Maybe I'm just being delusional here. But I can eat things that have a light amount of onions in it. I can eat things that have green onions in it. But anything that just has a lot of onions in it, I have difficulty with eating. So today, this dish that I got, the tutta, it had quite a bit of onions scattered in there. And in order to get past that, I did like a self-hypnosis. I just like snapped my fingers, put myself to sleep for a moment. I said, you're going to enjoy these onions. You're no longer traumatized by them. Just a technique that I've learned from attending various self-help seminars over the past few months. And it actually worked. I was able to eat the onions. I'll be honest, I didn't like love the dish. It, apart from spiciness, didn't have a ton of flavor. And the onion taste did play a factor in me not enjoying the dish like that much. I would give it maybe like a 6 out of 10. But it wasn't like I was completely unable to eat it. So I made like a significant progress with my tolerance towards onions. So that was an exciting part of that meal that I had. Um, so, anyways, jumping out back to this puzzle, I'm still looking at knight takes e5 as the potential first move. It's jumping off the board at me. But maybe c takes b4 has merit as well. So what I'm looking at now is c takes b4, knight takes f3, queen takes f3, and if queen takes b2, queen takes f7 check, king at d8, queen f8 mate. So that's a variation we didn't see before. And if knight takes, or if c takes b4, knight takes f3, queen takes f3, queen takes f3, g takes f3, I'm still up a bishop here. And my bishop is also attacking down this diagonal. So he will have to block that, which will just allow either the weakening of his king side and also a trade of pieces on g8 or on f6. So let me just take a look at that again to confirm. So the key point here is that he can't capture on b2 because of this mate on f7. So it ties in a couple of the themes that we've been working with in this puzzle. So that looks really good to me. And just thinking in my head, is there anything else that we need to confirm? It's very miraculous how the move just like jumps out at you once you've taken a little bit of time away from the puzzle. It's like in a tournament, you get up and you walk around a little bit, take a look at other people's boards, and come back with a fresh new sight. Or you can do what Hans Niemann does, which is step around the table and look at the position from your opponent's perspective. We can actually do that here just by flipping the board. So we can, for example, calculate this from the other side, c takes b4. And in order to get his bishop back, he has to play this knight takes f3 move. And we just play queen takes f3 and we prevent this recapture on b2. And then if he trades queens, he forgoes the ability to make that recapture anyways. So let's go ahead and play this sequence out. So c takes b4. He takes. And now the key is we have to take back with a queen. Queen takes f3. And he takes with our queen with his queen. And then we just recapture. And that's the end of that puzzle. So very excited about the fact that we were able to solve that puzzle. Let's go back and look at the position and see what we can take away from it. It's kind of a stare down, right? So after takes, queen takes, and queen takes here, we have this position where the queens are attacking each other in a situation that I like to call a capture opposition. It's really putting a lot of pressure on both sides, almost like you're in a duel with somebody else. Like Alexander Hamilton was in a duel with Aaron Burr in the Revolutionary War. And he ultimately lost that duel and lost his life. But that's kind of what it feels like to be walking into a duel, knowing that there's a lot of pressure on you. And being willing to calculate those positions and all of the variations that come with it requires a good amount of mental strength as you're playing the game. It's easy to calculate positions where there's just a simple set of forcing moves, but calculating positions where the complexity actually grows and expands can actually be more difficult, and your brain naturally will want to avoid doing that and just try to spam out fast moves quickly. We initially liked knight takes e5 a lot more than c takes b4 because we thought that after c takes b4, knight takes, if we played queen takes b2, and we thought that he could just take our rook on a1, and we completely missed the idea of this queen takes f7 check. So that's another key, a clue that we should improve our visualization skills, so that we can see move the pieces around a little bit more effectively in our minds. And it may be helpful to do an exercise for that, or just continue calculating and do more puzzles. I do make flashcards after I solve puzzles where I go over the positions again and I write out the moves, or I write out like aspects of a square that can be attacked, how many attackers and defenders are on that square after a certain depth. So it forces me to visualize deep into the future and be able to perceive things accurately just from my imagination. So that's a very powerful tool for thinking, whether you're a business person or an architect, the ability to kind of visualize a product or visualize a building that you're designing and move things around and put things in the correct orientation. All that can be very helpful. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Make sure to give it a subscription if you liked it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.